I'm Maureen Yoder, and it's my privilege to introduce Frank Palatucci and his partner, Mary Reese.
Well, good afternoon, everyone. Frank and I are here to talk about two of the programs that are offered through the Foundation for Educational Administration. Our NJXL Principal Preparation and Certification Program, and our New Jersey Leaders to Leaders, which is our induction and mentoring program for new principals, assistant principals, and directors. So to give you some background, in 2002, 15 years ago, we had some issues in New Jersey around the quality and the availability of candidates for the principalship. So we learned from our Department of Ed that there were many candidates who had the certification but weren't necessarily qualified nor interested. So consequently, we had a shortage. So we had several of our members, and FEA is the professional development arm of the New Jersey Principals and Supervisors Association. We have about 8,000 members in the state. So we had a group of supervisors who came to us and said, we really would like to be principals, but we have PhDs in curriculum and supervision, master's degrees. We don't want to go back for another master's. And at the time, in order to be certified as a principal, one needed to complete a master's in educational administration. So our new commissioner of education happened to be a superintendent from a well-regarded district. And he brought into the Department of Ed, his assistant commissioners were all superintendents. And they understood the need for quality principal candidates. So they entertained the idea of looking at a non-traditional pathway to the principalship. And our executive director at the time pulled together three of us, locked us up in a room for 2 days, and said, let's develop a program that we would want to have implemented for principals who will be the principals of the next 10, 15 years. So we came up with an outline based upon all the research and data we had at our fingertips, and went to the new commissioner and proposed the idea. He was very interested, and we realized it would require a code change, though, in order for it to be implemented, because at the time, the master's was a requirement in ed leadership. So, nevertheless, he put through the code, and it probably was revised faster than any code on the books. And we then had new code in in New Jersey through the Department of Education to allow for a non-traditional pathway to principal preparation. At the time, our organization hired Ellie Forster, who had been working at a local university, and she developed the actual curriculum, which was a spiral curriculum. It was completely cohort-based, which had not been done at all in any of the colleges and universities. And it was a certification program, not a degree program. So the department agreed to provide the certification once the candidates fulfilled the requirements, which included a variety of projects, job-embedded projects, supervisory project, and an action research project. They also had an extensive internship as part of this. And the first group were composed of all supervisors who had masters and doctorates and only wanted the principal certification. We had 40-some in the first cohort. Every single one of them was hired immediately, and it caused quite a bit of an uproar in the state. So the commissioner came back and said, well, you know, this is so successful, why don't we look to see what we can do for teachers who want to get supervisory certification as well as principal certification. So Frank will talk about the various models that we have. But what it did was it created a whole new generation of principal candidates, trained very differently. And we're going to get into the mentoring and induction program in the second half of this presentation. But what we learned once these folks were all placed in assistant principal and many principal positions, they were having a little bit of a difficult time because they were up against traditionally trained people. So that they came back to us from the Department of Ed and they said, well, why don't you look at the mentoring and induction program? We've had it on the books since 1985. Depending upon the district, it was either implemented as a paper process to it was implemented with Fidelity. No one was monitoring it. So that's what led to our Leaders to Leaders, because we really felt that our folks who were being trained differently needed the support to continue in those roles and be successful. So that's the history of how we developed this. We were very fortunate early on to get 2 SLP grants. So we, in the early days, had many candidates from 4 urban centers in New Jersey come through the program. You'll find out later on that we have attracted a non-traditional group to this non-traditional program, and that most of the candidates are female. It's a very intensive program. It's a year or a year and a half, and there's a lot that goes on within that program. And it's just amazing to see the type A personalities that are attracted to this unusual way of gaining supervision and principal certification. But what's so interesting is we still find that many of the candidates managed to get pregnant during that year and a half, and we don't understand how. I mean, many of them will bring their babies to the graduation ceremonies because, it's just, I mean, we just can't imagine how they found the time during this intensive period to do all this. So anyway, so we're really happy that we're able to present this program to you. This is our 3rd SLP grant. We're in 2 rural districts this year, and Trenton, our capital. And once again, we're really excited to see the quality of the candidates who come to us and their steadfastness in wanting to be successful students. So Frank will give you some particulars about the various models of our program, and we'll talk a little bit more later.
Already? I don't need that.
You don't need it?
He wired me. Okay. I'm wired for sound. There you go. Thanks, Akeem. There we go. Yes, Mary has suggested just one of the criticisms that the program gets, and I hear it every once in a while, is that, well, everybody gets in. Well, no, not everybody gets in, but we're dealing with a very different clientele. Everybody in the program must have a master's degree, related field in education. They must have a minimum of at least 4 years of successful teaching. We have a significant number of people come to the program with supervisory certification already. We have people in the program with a doctorate. So it's a different clientele. And one of the things that we have, yes, go ahead.
The 4 years of successful teaching?
Full-time, or ed specialist.
What was the measure? Was that on standardized test or?
Well, they have to get approval from their district to get in.
Okay.
So we rely on a district to say, basically, they need to have a support from their district. So if they don't get the support, they can't get into the program. Okay, so, because we've even kicked around the idea of looking at classroom evaluations and everything. That's a snapshot in a particular period, a particular time, and so what good does it do us? So the bottom line is that they have to get endorsement. And actually with the 3 districts that Mary is talking about, Bridgeton, Trenton, and Millville, when people apply to their program, we don't permit them to get in unless they get endorsement and clearance from the district ahead of time. So a little bit of a balance there to make sure that the people coming in are serious about it and have the full support of the people behind them on this one. Okay, as you go through.
And we also in New Jersey have tenure for teachers. So they receive tenure their 4th year. So one would hope that by the time that they've gotten to 4 years of experience, that they're vetted by their local districts and that they're considered to be, quality candidates.
Yeah, and then there's also an interview process that we put them through, and we have a rubric that we use, and they have to score at a certain point, and there was a rubric in terms of their experience. We put them through some task analysis tests, we ask them for writing samples, all of that. So we look at that prior to letting them come in. We also ask them to bring with them some evidence of some leadership experiences that they had. They've been on a committee, they've chaired a committee, they've coached a team, they've been an advisor, whatever. Both in school or out of school for them to do that. All right, so that's how we deal with that. Okay. Since 2003, we've had 1,000, almost 1,700 people go through the program, and that's basically who they are. Okay. And as Mary said, the majority are women. And if you look at, just take a mental snapshot of this, and let's take a look at the districts that are in the grant right now. It really has helped us in terms of diversity, in terms of what we are seeing coming into the program for us. We're really happy with that. And also the 70, I should have an asterisk on the 75, because Mary reminded me that we have 5 people that have withdrawn from the program. 1 person moved, 3 people went to another district, and then 1 person just said this wasn't for her and she left. All right, so it's really 70 that we've gone, and we have 11 right now in the pipeline for July, so it'll be roughly 81, for people that are in here. But you can see that the profile is significantly different for the folks that are in the grant. And this is where we are so far with the grant in terms of the candidates that have come in, and we're feeling good about it. Everyone else is either still in process, but you can see the percentages of people who have completed the program. So roughly half of the candidates that we've identified in those districts are still part of the program. They're still working through the program.
And as Frank mentioned, they've all been vetted. We don't allow them into the program unless their central office administrators and their principals approve their attendance. And we pay 75% of their tuition. The district pays the rest through tuition reimbursement. So that's another reason why the districts want to be sure that they have quality candidates in the pipeline.
Let me jump over this one. These are the certifications that the program leads to. And I'll show you the models in a minute. But if someone comes to the program without supervisory certification in New Jersey, within the first year of the program, they'll be eligible for the New Jersey supervisor's certificate. And then at the completion of the program, everyone is eligible for certificate of eligibility. That's not a standard cert, it's a certificate of eligibility for principal. The same certificate that they would receive if they completed this work at Princeton University. There's no difference. And as Mary said at the start of the program, there was only 1 model for educators that already held not only a supervisory certificate, but also had experience under that cert. And we've added a model 4, which allows us to also grant eligibility for certificate of eligibility for school administrator, superintendent, central office person. And those candidates that have at least 3 years of experience as a guidance counselor at the end of the program also qualify for the Director of School Counseling certification. So it's pretty comprehensive for those people who want to do this. And again, remember, everyone comes to this program with a master's degree already. Yeah, go ahead.
The supervisor, is that like a math chair or an English?
Be a math supervisor. So you get somebody who's overseeing a math department, whatever, language arts department, science department, yes, okay. Correct.
They're instructional supervisors, so they have content-specific responsibilities for the most part. In some places, there might be an elementary supervisor, but as you say, there's a math person or whatever, and they could be called a department head, a coordinator, a supervisor. And we have in New Jersey a supervisory certification that covers those folks.
As Mary said at the start of the program, this was the only model that we had. And since that time, we've added 4 more. So Model 2 are candidates with supervisory certification but do not have the years of experience under the cert. Model 3 are classroom teachers or educational specialists with the required amount of time in the profession, but again, do not have supervisory cert. And Model 4, I've already talked about, that grants eligibility for their certificate of eligibility for school administrator. And the 5th model, actually, we put this together in coordination with the State Department. We had people, believe it or not, that would complete a doctoral program in ed leadership and then apply for a certification in the state and be told they're not eligible because they had not completed the 300-hour practicum. So that was a problem. So we got the permission from the department to offer that. And we have a small number of people, but probably no more than 5 or 6 people at any given moment that are going through that part of it. But it certainly helps them. This is a standard-based curriculum, based on, the current, this is interesting. The program right now wraps around the old ISLIC standards. And the reason for that is because the SLLA that everyone in New Jersey, that's a school leader's licensure assessment that everybody in New Jersey must take regardless of where you do this work to be certified, is based on the '08 ISLIC standards. So we still are working with the new 2015 PSELs, but again, we're kind of walking this fine line because at the end of this, the test that counts is based on the old standards that are, again, approaching 10 years, 10 years old. These are the 4 organizing principles around the program: organizational, community, and instructional leadership and strategic management. The big difference with Excel from a traditional program that is it is heavily internship project based. Field experience is really key to this. So we want them to do the same kind of work that they would be doing if they actually are in this position for real. And this is the program design. It's a PLC. A lot of collaboration and networking. It's a cohort. And we have 3 sites: Central Jersey, South Jersey, and North Jersey. So you go through the program as a cohort, as a lot of other programs are. We divide them into smaller groups called inquiry groups, 5 to 6 people. We assign them a mentor. We assign them a field supervisor. And then they must then either work with us or suggest someone to work. They have to work with a practicing building principal is one of the mentors they need to work with. And they need to work with a practicing supervisor. That could be a vice principal with supervisory responsibilities, could be a central office person, it could be director. We'll work with them all the way through this. So a lot of mentors, a lot of
when you say
mentors.
the multiple mentors, that includes on-site?
Yes, correct.
Plus whoever
Plus
is
our staff.
the field support?
Correct, okay. All right, you good?
Yes.
And we do that for a couple of reasons. One, it gives them a much broader base of experience, number one, and you don't have any one person that has life or death decisions about where they're going. And we have something just came up with the last 2 days with someone who's working with the mentors, really giving this person a very, very hard time. So it's a little bit of a tightrope walk because in a lot of cases, the mentor is this person's direct supervisor. So, and we tell them, make us the bad guys. Okay, we'll be the bad guys for you. So it's going to be interesting. Never happened before. All right. Don't want to get into the weeds on this, but the program generally meets 1 night a week at one of the 3 sites. One of the beauties of the program, one of the flexibilities of the program, that candidates, regardless of what cohort they belong to, can attend classes with any cohort in any location. So we understand this is not the center of their universe. They all have full-time jobs. Most of them have families and most responsibilities. So we work with them on this. And then averaging about 2 Saturdays a month, every other Saturday in a month at least through the first year of the program for everybody. All right. We have a summer session with school law. It's comprehensive. It's pretty intense. Okay. Field bases are all job-embedded experiences. The projects that are required, all candidates must do an action research project. Right? And if you're familiar with action research, it follows a format. And everything in the program is also rubric-driven. Everything. They also must complete a job-embedded project. And there's also a planning and approval process before they begin these, so that we know that we're comfortable that what they're doing is number one, rigorous, number two, has some lasting value for them. And they also will do a school-based internship project with the principal with whom they are working. And some candidates, 2 of the 3 models, must do a supervisory project as well with the supervisor with whom they are working also. All right, so it's comprehensive. One of the things that we feel really good about, I can't believe that this December will be 3 years since we completed an independent evaluation of the program. Mary was central to that. And one of the things that the researchers discovered and just absolutely astounded us that when they began to research and talk to particularly our alumni from the program, that 72% of the projects that were completed in Excel are in place. They're being used in a school or district. We were stunned by that in a very positive way. If they told us 40%, we would say, hey, way to go. But 72%. So we really feel very, very good about that.
Frank, let me add something to that. We're finding, in particular with our SLP districts right now, that the candidates who've completed these projects are really contributing to many aspects of the school life, particularly around climate and culture. And the principals and central office attribute these folks who've gone through the Excel program as being the factors that are making a difference. So we have at this point a few people who've gotten assistant principal positions who've gone through Excel, but we have so many more teacher leaders. We have some who've become supervisors, who've become literacy leaders, math coaches. So there is a continuum of leadership that's occurring. Like they're not going right from the classroom into the assistant principalship, but they are receiving recognition and in many situations are being appointed to positions of greater authority as a result of their completion of these projects in their buildings.
One of the selling points for the program, because one of the questions that comes up, particularly with a mentor who's never worked in the program before, is like, what are you getting me into here? And we mean this, and it works. We'll tell a principal or a supervisor, here's an opportunity, here's another set of hands, here's another brain, set of eyes to work with and to help you put something in place that you may have wanted to be put in place and just never had the time or the resources to do it. So it really is a win-win for everybody, okay?
Are you going to speak to some maybe training and support you've given those principal mentors?
The principal mentors we have basically everything is rubric driven. So their responsibilities, timelines, all that is laid out for them. Okay, because of the numbers involved, and because of the fact that they have again tremendous responsibilities themselves, we can't by choice, number one, and I don't know that we want to get very heavy-handed with what we're going to require or train them to do. You know, they are successful in their own right. Okay. So, but again, everything that they do, one of the mentors we call is like kind of a program facilitator. So when you go through that planning and approval process for, let's say, a project, an internship with the principal, that needs to get approval from that mentor as well, that program mentor, or one of our staff. So it's not just a carte blanche and you just do what you want to do and we'll let you go. All right. So there's checks and balances all the way through the program.
You know, another piece of this, though, is we're really fortunate to be the New Jersey Principals and Supervisors Association. Our network is huge, and we know, if we don't know the person, we know someone who knows the person. So our mentors are vetted as being excellent at what they do. And if they're not, they're no longer a mentor. So we have that added advantage to knowing a lot about the principals in the state who are serving in this role. And we also have orientation meetings that they come together with their residents every period. So it's not as if they're just out there on their own. They're part of our whole process.
And this is a little bit redundant, but it's what I've got done talking about. But the non-traditional part of the program, in fact, that there's hours built into everything that they do. So this is not an alternate route program. So our candidates meet all of the code requirements that someone would meet if they went through a traditional program at Rutgers University or wherever, okay? All the way through that. So the projects feel in there. There's field experiences that work together with this on top of what you're seeing there on the screen. There's a very heavy tech requirement that candidates need to complete as well. And all of this is customizable based on their skill set. The older that I get, I can't say that the candidates get a whole lot younger, but the older that I get, the people that come to the program come with a much broader and stronger foundation in technology than they had maybe 10 years ago or whatever. So it's not really an issue for us any longer, but they must complete that requirement also.
Initially, 14 years ago when we started, because 2003 was our first cohort, we had to teach people how to use a mouse.
Yeah, that's right.
I mean, we had to explain to them what a mouse was.
That's right.
So we've evolved dramatically in 14 years.
remember that.
And now we're learning from the students, because many of the young ones particularly have this as their second language.
One of the things here to overarch is too, if you notice here, there's this technology self-assessment. The candidates do a lot of self-assessments all the way through in the very beginning of the program, a lot of reflecting on who they are individually, who they are professionally, and how is that going to translate into the kind of leader that they will begin to become. And I was a mentor, and I've been involved with the program for many, many years, and as a mentor, that was one of the, I thought, the most enriching experiences that we had, having to ask yourself those questions, and sometimes the answers you got weren't the ones you wanted to hear. There's no traditional tests, no midterms, finals, any of that. The program is built around modules, and within each one of the modules are various numbers of classes, different hours, and so forth and so on. The only test, again, that they do take at the end of the program is the SLLA that I just had mentioned to you as well. And also multiple performance assessments done by multiple assessors, okay? They're mentors and people that they're working with. The SLLA, we offer that prep sessions. If you're not familiar with the SLLA, this test is no walk in the park. It's very difficult. We are very proud of the fact that our candidates that go through the prep sessions, we have a 98% first-time pass rate. And our candidates score somewhere between 12 and 15 points higher than the state average. So we're doing something right with that for sure. Okay. They're eligible also. Right now we have a credit banking partnership with Thomas Edison State University. They can earn, depending on model, anywhere from 34 to 51 graduate credits once they complete the program. We're also very proud of the fact that right now we have 3 partnerships with universities that will grant credits from Excel toward their doctoral studies in ed leadership. So the very fact that they will do that says a lot about how they feel about the integrity of the program as well.
And I want to piggyback on this point. I would say, 3-4 years into the program, we had these wonderful graduates who were so psyched about learning, and they wanted to continue to learn. So we're not a university. And the first university we contacted was Rowan, and they were so impressed with the quality of the candidates that they're in South Jersey, they brought the doctoral program to our site for our candidates so that they could receive an EDD. Rarely did they have to go back to the campus. They were able to continue their education where they, in those days we had just the central site. But that's one of the reasons why the other universities are interested in these candidates, because as I said before, they're very unique, really type A, and very intense about and passionate about their work. They're ideal doctoral students. So it was just very natural that we made these connections with the schools.
And actually, a week after next, we have a meeting with another university who will remain nameless right now up north, that I think is going to also offer to grant credit from Excel for doctoral studies. So we feel very, very proud of that. And I think that says a lot about our program, that those universities are willing to do that. Geez, I was going to say something, I just lost it. I guess that's part of growing old, but it'll come back to me, I'm sure. Tuition and fees, I don't want to spend a lot of time on this, but bottom line is, if you look at Model 3, the program start to finish is about $13,000. All right, that's a bargain. I mean, it's about a third of what it would cost to go back and get a second master's degree. And even some of the accelerated programs in some of the college universities are at least $10,000 to $15,000 higher than that. Through the grant, God bless the grant, this is amazing. You want to talk about this, Mary, a little bit?
Well, as I said, we pay 75% of the candidates' tuition and fees and books. And this is what it costs. So it's just a tremendous bargain for an outstanding program. The other interesting thing I wanted to mention about this is, as Frank said, there's no comparison between the cost of tuition with us versus the university. And in the beginning, when we first started Excel, we thought there might be pushback from the colleges and universities. But what we found is, because we're a statewide program versus a regional program, it's not as threatening. So, like, let's say you have a master's degree program up in North Jersey. Well, you attract a certain clientele, whereas our program attracts from all over the state. So we've never really had a lot of pushback from colleges and universities, even though our price is so much cheaper than theirs. The other interesting thing is, when we first started this and we had our first SLP grants, we also were involved in a Wallace-funded project. And we had at the table people from other principal preparation programs. Interestingly enough, through Joe Murphy, who was our consultant for the Wallace project. Well, he was just amazing. But he took the program's tenets to some of the other university programs, because no one was doing a cohort model at the time. No one had like a spiral curriculum. It was all, distinct courses. And I think in many ways we were able to shape principal preparation in the state. One of the questions on the APR is how does your work, affect policy? Well, it had a dramatic effect upon policy as well as practice in New Jersey.
Absolutely. But this is amazing. And to be honest with you, I'm surprised that we're not beating people away from this program with a stick, because the most expensive program, the third Model 3, is roughly $9,000. I'm sorry, $3,000 out of pocket, start to finish. I mean, where do you get that? That's amazing. Okay. All right. We have 3 sites. These are the 3 sites that we currently have. Our headquarters is in Central Jersey at NJPSA FEA. And then we have a northern site up in Parsippany, way up north, and then a southern site down in Gloucester County, New Jersey. So it's convenient for most people. New Jersey is a very strange state, because you get down, and it's been frustrating us with the southern site, because New Jersey kind of bellies out at the bottom of the state, and there's no major thoroughfare east and west. So if you're all the way over on the western side of the state, what's that saying? You can't get there from here. So that's can be a little bit frustrating for us. But it holds in there, hangs in and holds its own. Before we get to the next part of this, anyone have any questions related to the Excel program itself? Okay. One of the things that I've sat in a couple of sessions this morning, one session I sat in on was very interesting. It was talking about candidates that they work with, that when they complete the program, where's the level of support that they get. And this ties into the next part of the program that talks about our L2L program, Leaders to Leaders. I was very lucky. In 2005, Ellie Foster, who basically was the brainchild behind Excel, and Ellie's one of the few people in my life I've ever met that I can truly say without blinking is a genius. It wasn't until after I started working as the director and being to start to dissect some of this work and saying, what the heck did you, I don't understand, explain this to me. Just amazing, but it all ties together, it all comes together very, very tightly all the way through, all 3 models. One of the things missing, and Mary mentioned it earlier, is that prior to 2005, there was a mentoring requirement for a new principal. I should maybe back off that. For anyone coming into a job that required principal certification, it was a 1-year internship. But there was no thing that bounded together, there was no consistency with it. So if Mary Reese was the principal and you were doing an internship with her, you got the Mary Reese version of the internship. If you're doing your internship with Frank Palatucci, you got the Frank Palatucci version. There was no training, there was no nothing, okay? So, and the commissioner at the time, Librera, Dr. Librera, said, we got to do something about this. So again, enter Ellie Foster, right? And again, I was lucky enough to be part of the task force and put together, based very much on the backbone of what Excel is all about, this 2-year mentoring program that's called Leaders to Leaders. It's a required program in New Jersey for anyone who walks into a position that requires principal certification. Obviously, principal, vice principal, director of, fill in the blank, all right? So it's a 2-year residency program that we go through this. We just went through an RFQ process a couple of years ago. The state decided to open it up to all comers and was interested, and very proud to say that we are still the sole provider for this internship in the state of New Jersey. Nobody could come close to what we offer in terms of the rigor of it, and also with the cost. The cost is again keeping it as low as we possibly can. And so since 2005, this has been something that's been required by anybody ends up in a position requiring principal cert in New Jersey.
Since 2005, we've had successive MOUs with the New Jersey Department of Education in order to have this. And as Frank said, most recently, it was opened up to everyone. And a few others applied, but we were successful once again. But one of the things that the department asked us to do was to examine the way it was implemented. So initially, for all these years, it was a mentorship relationship. It was a trained mentor working with a resident for a certain number of hours, and inquiry groups with peer groups with small 3, 4, 5 candidates, residents together in a regional site. And that was the extent of it. And we trained the mentors. They had to be recertified, so we saw a lot of the mentors. But when we applied for the most recent RFP, they suggested that we add a professional learning experience to it above and beyond the mentoring and induction experience. So together with the New Jersey Department of Ed and the New Jersey Association of School Administration, which is the superintendents in New Jersey, we developed the New Jersey Leadership Academy. We felt that, and it wasn't just, we didn't develop this just for the mentoring and induction program. We developed this for educational leaders in New Jersey because we really felt it was important for the folks in the state to work in collaborative team training. So we developed together, those 3 entities, a 3-session professional learning experience. And depending upon the year, this is the 4th year now, it was thematic. So it was, it was all the new initiatives initially because, we had Common Core, Park, evaluation all came at once. But it's evolved since then. And we have a development team of people from those 3 entities that sit and determine what the current initiatives are and develop the Leadership Academy for those teams. It was so successful that the Department of Ed said, well, why don't we do something similar for the Leaders to Leaders residents? So now we have teams of superintendents and principals and teacher leaders come together. Infused in those groups are these residents who are going through the Leaders to Leaders program. So they get the professional learning opportunities, they get the one-on-one with their mentors, and they get the peer support groups. So it's evolved into a very comprehensive program, and I think we've really found the best way to move this forward. And as Frank said, this is a requirement for everybody. Anybody who holds a certification for principal and wishes to have it become a permanent certification must go through this process.
Want to talk a little bit about the additional hours that they get, the members of the grants?
So as part of the SLP grant, we double the amount of time that the new leaders spend with their mentors, and we pay for all of that as well. We also pay for all their professional learning experiences. We have a whole host of them at our center, where our foundation has a conference center, and we have on a daily basis different professional learning experiences going on. And we also provide a lot of in-district work. So nowadays there aren't a lot of professional development days in districts, so we accommodate the district. We sit and we review their SIPs and their Title I plans and their district goals and their school goals, and we develop on-site professional learning experiences whenever they want them. You know, if they have a half a day, or they want to go into the evening, or they want to do something on a Saturday, we take care of that too. But the grant has really been wonderful to these 3 districts in terms of the Excel program that we've mentioned, the Leaders to Leaders, and then all the professional learning that's going on.
Key piece of this too, I think is one of the best, is when we talk about the Leadership Academy that Mary just described. At the end of each one of these sessions, if you're an Leader to Leader resident, you don't go home. You stick around, and we have a minimum of an hour basically follow-up with trained mentors who stay with this group all the way through the Leadership Academy. I said, okay, that was fun, wasn't it? What did you learn? Let's talk about it. Let's talk about what happens when the rubber meets the road in your district with some of the things that we just got done talking about. We've gotten very high marks from the residents, saying this is probably one of the most valuable pieces of it. And the other valuable piece are these peer group meetings that are held. Again, a key piece to the program. We have a new coordinator program, gentleman named Jim Sarto, who's been basically on a road trip visiting these peer group meetings and making sure that they are running the way that they were designed to run, with sharing going on between and among the candidates, residents, I should say, with some support from the mentors that are there. And again, very, very valuable piece as well.
And this enhanced model came about not just because we all were sitting around the table having a conversation, which we often do about a lot of things, but we had focus groups, North, Central, South. We had mentors, we had residents, the Department of Ed sat in on those focus groups, and this is what evolved. So, and we're really very happy with the way it's been implemented. I think it's been 2 years now since we've had this new process in place.
And again, this is the collaboration with the department has been amazing, the Office of Licensure and Credentials. And one of the questions that we get once in a while is that we get these are new residents coming in. You know, this is the second year of the program that they get, which it continues all the way through. And there was also provisions made for someone who comes from out of state with previous experience. The Office of Licensure and Credentials has been incredibly great to work with. You know, I can't say enough about them. So it just shows to show what we talk about partnerships, what that means, and it works for everybody. So year 2 of the residency requirements, same kind of things, with all the hours are reduced somewhat. And again, as Mary said previous, the members who are of the residents that are part of the grant receive additional hours beyond what you would normally get. This has been mentioned, someone coming from out of state with previous experience. Requirements of their hours are reduced. They can document that, in fact, they've come with some prior experience. There's an action research project that's required of everybody, similar to Excel. One of the things we do with our Excel folks is that, not necessarily, if you want to do another action research project, be our guest. If you'd rather not, you want to expand on the one you already did, knock yourself out. Right. So again, this is something that they have to do on top of all the other hours that you just saw, and they have to present this to their groups once they've completed it. I think it's a valuable piece, really valuable piece. This is something that has evolved also. This is something that initially looked good on paper, where you had to identify people to serve as your, it wasn't called critical friends, I forget what the term was for it. Peer, no, well, it doesn't matter. But it looked good on paper, but in reality, it really wasn't doing what it was intended to do. This is different because now the Critical Friends Network is built from the cohort of residents that are in the program with you, okay? So you're meeting with people that are going through the same requirements, and again, just bounce ideas off one another, bounce problems off one another, crying on each other's shoulders, whatever it happens to be. But we've received very high marks. As Mary said, we have focus groups, evaluations coming back from the folks that are in the program. Really think that this is one of the best that we wanted to that we put in place. I'm going to be a little scatological here because it just dawned on me what I wanted to say before I forgot. When I was looking at Excel, and also with leaders to leaders as well, because there's no traditional test. However, in Excel, based on your model, 4 times through the program, you go through what's called a program status review. Okay, so for instance, we are 4 months in. Here's about where you should be. Talk to me. Where are you? Because the other part of the program I think is so valuable, but it drives some people absolutely to distraction, is that you've got to build a lot of this yourself. There are some folks that are very comfortable. You tell them, okay, by October 14th, you need this and this and this and this. It's not the way it works, and that's not the way it works when somebody hands you the keys to the building. Same thing holds true in leaders to leaders. There are set, prescribed benchmarks where evaluations are done all the way through the program, so that if someone is coming off the rails at some point, the mentors know to basically send up a flare, and we need to talk. Right? The other thing I need to mention about leaders to leaders, and we were insistent on this, even when we went through the RFQ, and it's interesting, as Mary said, we had operated for years under a memorandum of understanding, and there were some feelings on the department's legal team that they weren't quite sure whether that was legal or not, that maybe we should not do that any longer. So as a result, we had to go out on the RFQ, and in a way it was a good thing, because it made us take a step back and go through all of this as well. But the bottom line is that we go all the way through this, and the other thing with L2L, we made very clear that the leaders to leaders, the certification program they're going through, their endorsement, runs separate and apart from the evaluations that they're going through in their district. There's a lot of communication back and forth between the resident's direct supervisor and the mentors in the program, but it doesn't affect it. Right? And the reason for that is that someone could complete the program, fulfill all the requirements, and for whatever reason lose their job. And have nothing to do whatsoever with their abilities. Not that any mischief goes on, but of course not. But that we insisted on that. We absolutely insisted on that, and it has kept the process clean all the way through, start to finish.
And the other thing that we have to mention is that we don't receive a penny from the Department of Ed, and never have received a penny from the Department of Ed to implement the Leaders to Leaders mentoring and induction program. It's totally self-supporting, and we don't make a penny on it ourselves, because it's people intensive, and we're paying the mentors, we're paying the people who do all this processing, and that's it. But our association has long felt that it is our moral and it's our professional responsibility to make sure that these new people succeed, because in reality they're our members too. So we have like the foundation side that provides all the support, but we have the membership side, and they all become members. So we want to be sure that our members have the best opportunities available to them. And that's why we've had internal struggles over this program in our office over the years, because it takes a lot of energy to implement it, and there is no reward other than intrinsic, which is perfectly fine, and we're proud to do that.
We've also instituted within the last few years that someone who wants to serve as a mentor in the Leaders to Leaders program, you cannot have been away from that principalship for more than 5 years. Right? And it's not anything derogatory or about that individual, but you've been away from it. I've been retired for 6 years. I wouldn't even know where to begin with some of what the folks in the field have to deal with right now. So we want to make sure that what they are receiving is current and accurate. And all of our mentors in the Leaders to Leaders program must go through a yearly recertification process before they can continue. So we keep that very close to us to make sure that maintains its integrity. These are the key elements to the program. We talked about all of them. Mary's going to talk a little bit more about the Leadership Academy, because that's really an incredible initiative that we began. The leadership portfolio, each resident must maintain that, their experiences. We talked about this even with Excel, your self-reflection. What have you learned? You know, how would you change this? All the way through the program. So it is, we want them to grow. And then I already talked about the formative assessments that are due at various points through the program. And Leaders to Leaders is based on the new PSEL standards, right? Because there's no culminating test that affects it. So the current PSELs are embedded within the program. And as I mentioned, a 24-month residency program. The beauty of this also, and again, hats off to the department on this one, you could have a situation where someone starts a residency as, let's say, a vice principal, and after year one, the position's gone. You know, there's a riff. That person can pick up from where they left off within a certain period of time so that they don't lose that entire year of that residency. And again, hats off to the department for allowing us to do this. And it's fair, it's the right thing to do.
You know, by adding the Leadership Academy to the requirements has caused a bit of a fluff in some of our districts, because the people who went through the regular L2L program before they had to go to the Leadership Academy, how come we didn't have that? You know, because they're getting such good feedback from the new administrators who are going through the Leadership Academy. And they said, well, you know, but I said, well, you can do that now as a principal, so not to worry. But as I mentioned before, by adding this Leadership Academy component to the mentoring and induction program has really solidified the goal of making sure that our new residents have cutting-edge information on current and future initiatives in New Jersey and nationally too.
The other thing too, you notice here, and again, hats off to all the folks, and certainly hats off to Mary, who's really been driving force with this. If you notice, there's a partnership here. We also are linked with the New Jersey Superintendents Group that are part of this. Us, obviously, FEA, and also the Department of Education. And we have a great relationship as well with New Jersey ASCD as well. So it's really a joint venture for everybody. Because I know the superintendent's group realizes how important and how the key is this to their success as well, by having strong leaders in the positions and making sure that they are fully prepared. Okay. Want to talk a little bit about how this all came together, Mary? The Leadership Academy?
Well,
Okay,
as I said before.
Then we won't. It's okay.
Well, I mean, there wasn't much more I can add to it,
No.
you know. But it was collaboration is the key here, and Frank mentioned that we have close ties to the certification office in the New Jersey Department of Ed. We have close ties to every aspect of the New Jersey Department of Education, and our current commissioner was very involved in the development of this Leadership Academy. And the department also is great in advertising it. Once again, initially they gave us money for it because they were so committed to it. And now there's no more money for it. And we're still continuing to do it, analyze the budget, you know, determine how we can provide the services without that support. But the collaboration is key, as is with New Jersey ASA, the superintendent's organization. You know, I mentioned that we have like 8,000 members. Well, the Superintendent Association has maybe 800 members. So they're really not able to provide the kind of professional learning opportunities that they would like to for their members. So that's why we do so much collaboratively, and the Leadership Academy is an example of that. Superintendents are in our conference center as much as our members are. And there's no problem with that, because we really look forward to doing things as teams.
In terms of scale of the program also, Mary just kind of touched on that as well. I mean, because the entrance into Leaders to Leaders it just rolls. Depends upon you when you were appointed. So we don't have it excels different. We start the program officially twice a year. This thing rolls all the way through the year. And then since 2005, we've had close to 5,000 people go through the program. And in any given moment, since it's a 2-year cohort, so if you start at a certain date, you've got that 24-month period, at any time we're anywhere between 1,000 to 1,500 people that are in that pipeline moving forward. So it's big.
And we all are required to have professional development plans, all educators in New Jersey. So by attending the Leadership Academy, it satisfies that individualized PDP that each member would have.
Talk a little bit about costs of the program. Mary said this is not a cash cow. It's not why we do this. We do this because we have a responsibility to the profession. So those are the costs. Roughly it's $3,300. We do give a discount to Excel grads who have gone through Excel or now are into the L2L program, and it meets our costs, pays for the mentor fees, and helps us with administrative costs that we have at FEA. But that's pretty much it.
Some districts support residents in this program; others pay themselves.
Sure. And these are the two folks right now are at center stage with L2L, Jim Sardo, who's the coordinator, and Dr. Dora Cotignanis, who's the associate director of the program. If you have any questions, again, feel free to talk to them. We're going to open if you have any questions. We also have materials here on the table here if you want to take. Please take as many as you can because I don't have to take them back. So they told me to bring 60, so I did. But if you have any questions on either program, sure.
Went through there. What kind of ties do you have with those the New Jersey Middle School Association or the Schools to Watch initiative in New Jersey?
Well, Schools to Watch in New Jersey was up and running maybe 10 years ago, I think, when we really invested into it. New Jersey Department of Education, our association, Teacher Association, everybody. And interestingly enough, since then, we've had several schools that have been certified. We also have schools that are on the track to be certified. All those principals have gone through the L2L program, not necessarily through Excel. But a serendipitous SLP story, the New Jersey Department of Ed knows that we're actively involved in these 3 districts with the SLP grant. And the College of New Jersey, which is one of our state colleges, the Department of Ed, and the Trenton School District just put in an application for the United States Department of Ed to bring Schools to Watch to the middle schools in Trenton. And they brought us in on that proposal as well, not only because we're working in Trenton, but we're doing this work. So we're trying to make the whole experience seamless. Yeah. So it's not as if
there are also places to see and to learn about being middle grade leaders, which aren't necessarily in the scope of a typical administrative
right.
preparation.
So we are thrilled that we're part of this grant application. We just hope that it's going to be approved. But even if it's not approved, the College of New Jersey is working in 2 of these middle schools on the Schools to Watch framework, the rubric, and they're moving forward with implementing it. But it was just serendipitous that all of us came together to develop this application, which has to go through the State Department of Education. They have to be the group that is putting in the application. Margarita, we're just talking about, there's a new application federal program, an innovative program, and I can't remember which title it is, but we just put in a grant with the College of New Jersey, the Trenton School District, to implement the Schools to Watch program at the middle schools. So I'm not sure. It was just a couple weeks ago that we submitted the application. I think it was the beginning of April. Wasn't seed. It was something else. No.
Is it the new I3, the EIR Education Innovation?
Yes, that's it.
Right,
That's
the
it.
new I3.
That's it.
EIR.
So we're just talking about Schools to Watch, and so because we're involved through SLP in the Trenton School District, and the college and the Department of Ed are working on this grant application, we got involved too. So it's just nice to see these various connections that are being made. So yes, and it's not as if it's the only thing we've ever done with Schools to Watch. We are connected with that network. And as a matter of fact, the Department of Ed contacts were involved in the writing of this grant. No, that's what I'm saying. 7, 8, 9 years ago, full speed ahead. There was money also, you know, from the department.
Indirectly, to talk to your point, also you're talking about the preparation piece of this. I don't think I mentioned this, and we feel very good about this as well. In Excel, we have 80. Currently, we have 87 instructors. Okay, 90% of them are working practitioners at all levels, K through 12. Right, some of them are also adjunct professors at colleges and universities. So people that go through the program are getting a really strong, dose of what's really going on in the field. And the same thing with Leaders to Leaders. The mentors we have in part of the Leadership Academy are all working practitioners. They're there. They see it.
The rubric and those kinds of things are items that any of those folks can use and you can bring into your programs as well, so they get an idea of a vision.
Absolutely.